One of the main attractions at air shows across the country and into the United States is the B17G Bomber. With us now is Mike Muller to talk a bit about it. So Mike, can you just describe what is this plane?
This airplane was one of the mainstays of the American bomber force in Europe and in the Pacific. The B-17 dropped more tonnage of bombs in Europe than any other bomber during World War II, and the planes were used after the war in a variety of roles. This particular aircraft actually was a water bomber after the war.
So to help forest fires and things like that, that's what we're dealing with here. So how many people could fit in that plane, and just tell us some of the layout of it?
So a combat crew for the B-17 was 10. You had a bombardier, a navigator in the nose, a pilot and a co-pilot, and behind the co-pilot stood the flight engineer who also operated the top turret up there. Then you had a radio operator and 4 gunners, 2 waist gunners, a gunner that was in the ball turret underneath the aircraft, and a tail gunner all the way back in the back.
Now, what kind of damage could they do? I had a chance to go in and look at the size of those bombs.
So the B-17 could carry up to 8,000 pounds of bombs, although more typically it was about 6,000. So they could do quite a bit of damage, and they flew in flights of 800 to 1,000 bombers towards the end of the war. So you can imagine 1,000 bombers flying over a German city could do an awful lot of damage, each dropping 6,000 to 8,000 pounds of bombs.
And it's pretty high tech for the 1940s. Just talk a bit about some of maybe the inconveniences the crew and men on board would have had.
Well, there's no bathrooms on board, so you had to do your work ahead of time. The plane is not pressurized, and it flew at between 25 and 30,000 feet, so it's about minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit at that altitude. You're on oxygen, you've got goggles, a flight helmet, an electrically heated flight suit, which didn't work very well, so you were always cold. You could always tell a flight crew because they had frostbite right here between their goggles and their oxygen mask. It was pretty uncomfortable, and then of course people were shooting at you. In 1942, you had to fly, or 43, you had to fly 25 missions before you could go home, and your chances of surviving 25 missions was about 50%.
So very slim. Tell us about the engines.
The engines on this airplane are Wright Cyclone R1820 engines. Each of these engines generates 1,200 horsepower at takeoff and burns between 55 and 60 gallons of fuel per engine per hour, and about a gallon of oil. So this airplane can carry up to 1,700 gallons of fuel. The longer range versions could carry up to 2,600 gallons of fuel and had a flight range of about 2,500 miles with bomb load.
So tell us where they would fly.
So B-17s were used everywhere, but where you most think of them is in Europe. They would take off from bases all over England and fly deep into Germany, drop their bomb loads, and return. So again, you would have a mission of between 8 and 10 hours by the time you took off and landed.
Now the public is going to get a chance to look inside and perhaps even fly in this. Tell us about your flights.
So we do offer flight experiences to the public. It costs $450 to fly back in the back of the aircraft in what we call the waist compartment, and the 2 premium seats up in the nose cost $850. We're flying this afternoon. We have one flight this afternoon at 4:30. We might have another depending upon interest. From here we are going to Ardrey and to flying there, and we'll be giving flights there as well. This is how we actually support the aircraft. It costs a lot of money to maintain this aircraft. We've got an army of volunteers, but still a new engine costs us $60,000. So it costs a lot of money for the aircraft, so this is how we defray the expenses.
Mm-hmm. And you just travel from air show to air show. If people happen to miss you at the air show, where can they see you?
They can see us during the winter at our air base in Mesa, Arizona at Falcon Field. Our planes are there from about September through June, and we of course fly all that season there. We offer flights on both this aircraft, our B-25, and 5 other World War II vintage aircraft that we offer rides on as well.
Well, thanks so much for making your way to Prince Albert and sharing your time and beautiful flying museum with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.